Good morning, friends. After a nice, refreshing rain, you look fabulous, all energized. Let's sing together out of the gray hymn book, hymn number 318, We Would Be One. If you're joining us online, the lyrics will be projected in the chat. And I'd invite you to rise in body and our spirit, and let's sing together. We would be one.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist congregation. Our community envisions an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. We are so glad you are here today. You're welcome here just as you are. Whatever beliefs sustain you, whomever you love, however you understand and express your identity, and in all the ways you are still becoming the person you will be. My name is Liz Clement. I'm a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I use she and they pronouns, and I am a member of our worship arts team. Leading worship with me today is Troy Fisher, our music director, and Reverend Nancy Reid-McKee. Reverend Nancy recently retired from the Northlake UU Church in Kirkland. She attended the Starr King School for the ministry, along with our Reverend Mary Gear, and graduated in 2018. She did her internship at the UU congregation at Shelter Rock in New York, has served our faith tradition as president of the Starr King Graduate Association and vice president of the UU Women's Federation. And she currently serves as chair of the UU Commission on Social Witness. A few things to know about our service today. These will sound familiar for those of you who have been here for a while. We're streaming live on Zoom and YouTube, and the service is being recorded. We here in the sanctuary can see the often creative and sometimes misguided, but usually earnest, subtitles on the screen up in front here. And you joining us online can also turn them on in your settings if you choose. Over here, we have different chairs and some floor space and activities for your hands so everyone can be comfortable. We're a multi-generational community and we value our young ones. Kids, babies, and teens are welcome in the sanctuary always. There's also nursery care and a story time program for young ones in the classroom wing down the hallway if you're interested in that this morning. We are grateful for the many hands that help make worship happen. Thank you to all who contribute in so many ways. After the service, everyone will have a chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Reverend Nancy. For you on Zoom, we invite you to go into a breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. And for you here in person today, please feel free to stay for coffee and fellowship in the Commons. There's no after-service forum today, but please join us next Sunday, August 25th, at 11:30, a little bit after the worship service, for a mid-sabbatical congregational check-in. We'll meet in person here in the sanctuary, as well as online in Zoom. And if you can't attend, a recording will be available later on YouTube. This will be a time to reflect on this time of rest and renewal in our beloved community. And we'll also just check in with each other and see how we can keep leaning in to sustain and strengthen our shared ministry during this sabbatical and beyond. Please come. Also, at 11:30 next Sunday, and for the next few Sundays after that, all are welcome to join Get Out the Vote postcard parties here at OUUC. We'll handwrite simple postcards designed to encourage voter turnout in states where voter suppression is a known reality. Efforts like this do make a difference, and it's fun with friends. And one more, we're nearing the start of a new church year next month, when there will be many, 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 many things happening at OUUC. Our adult faith development program just opened up registration for a really wonderful and rich lineup of classes and groups that'll start in the fall. Our youth are going strong. Both the choir and Thursday evening community dinners and activities will be back right after Labor Day, and there's more. So check out the Tuesday electronic update or the website for the most up-to-date information. And if you're new here, if you don't have access to those things or you just don't know your way around them yet, feel free to just check in with anyone. Any of us here after the service who have been around a while can help connect you with someone or the information you're looking for. Now, let us open our hearts and our minds as we prepare for worship. It is good to be together. This morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. If you are online and have a chalice or candle, please join us as we light them together with these words from Pat Uribe Lichty. We face a challenge to democracy, a challenge that calls us to hope in moments of despair, a challenge that asks us to persist in the faith that we can and must make a difference. May our flaming chalice recommit us to truth in our words and in our actions, that we may live as we believe people should live. And we light this candle in honor of the Reverend Mary Gear, our settled minister on this her 9th week of sabbatical. We light our candle here each week to help us sustain our bond with her and to stay present to the spirit of renewal. We know her matching candle will help light her way home to us come November. That's okay. Thank you, Nancy.
It's good to see all of you here today. I'm the Reverend Nancy Reid-McKee. I use she, her pronouns. I am a short, older woman wearing black today with a brightly colored stole, and I call you to worship with these words. There is too much beauty in this world to give up on it yet, and it is always too soon to surrender to cynicism. Bring your doubt, your skepticism, your downright confusion, even your bitterness. But in the midst of all these, in the center, wrap your tender fingers around that bright thread of hope. Feel in your heart that still, steady hunger for something more. The vision we glimpse every day in the rising sun across the foothills, the light that spreads across the face of the one we love, the look of knowing all there is to know and still loving life, loving us just as we are, just as it is. For this hour, we come to celebrate, to praise, to give thanks, to refuse to give up, to steady ourselves, keepers of hope, brave builders of the still possible world. Come, let us worship together.
I invite you to rise and let's sing hymn number 128 out of the Gray Hymn Book, For All That Is Our Life.
One of my earliest memories is the view from my mom's shoulders near the gates of the Y-12 National Security Complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It was August 1984. I was 3 years old, and we were two of what I remember as a very large group of people who gathered on a sweltering hot summer day to protest the use of nuclear weapons. Y-12 was built in 1943 during World War II as part of the Manhattan Project. Surrounded by the lush green rolling hills of rural East Tennessee, it supplied the uranium that was used in the bombs the United States dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In the 1980s, it still produced weapons. I probably didn't know all of that at the time, and I definitely didn't understand the larger context outside the tight sphere of my own young life. But that 3-year-old's memory has stayed with me. Fast forward through a childhood full of marches, public comment sessions, lit dropping, and voter registration tabling before I myself was even old enough to vote. In high school for a time, I worked in the newsroom of a local NBC affiliate. I wanted to become an international correspondent for some major news outlet. I loved big world news, and I loved everyday personal stories. And I loved different languages and cultures and the artistry of theater. What better way to bring all those together? And a side note here, I'm glad that I had that dream, and I'm glad that I was so fortunate to be able to have that dream. And I'm also glad that's not the course my life has taken. But I remain grateful for the many adults who gave me, young me, so many opportunities to learn and decide for myself what was important to me. 25 years later, after that ride on Mom's shoulders when I was 3, I lived in Juneau, Alaska, raising my own very young son while working in the state capitol building. For the first 6 years of his life, Gianni was a Capitol kid, one of the Capitol kids. Over time, that's become the common shared name for the group of legislators and staffers' kids who spend time around the building as their parents juggle their pieces of paper as their parents juggle all the things that are part of legislative family life. The good things, the hard things, the more hard things, and good things. Many of those kids practiced their alphabet and their numbers by helping me sort out and send mail. They got to know people from all over the state as they made their way through the hallways, delivering notes and other important things from office to office. They knew where to find the good candy jars and what times were usually okay for flying paper airplanes or racing matchbox cars through the long open hallways. And in the inflated and fragile ego-heavy pressure cooker of ledge sessions, their simple presence helped us, all of us, to see beyond the surface of each other. You might be surprised sometimes to see who thought the kids were just in the way and who loved and looked out for them. The kids humanized and helped us all keep grounded in what was real. They helped us adults remember not just what was important, but why it was important too. 10 years later now, I'm here in Olympia and happy to be. I'm not working in or around a Capitol building, and I am really glad for that too, although that work is so important. Gianni is an astute 16-year-old, and we are just living our lives right now that are overfilled, trying to balance work and school and family needs and health issues and being a single parent and just being a 16-year-old boy in a world today. And there's also a lot of joy and connection in our lives with people we love. And we're trying to find room and prioritize giving ourselves time to rest as much as we can too, especially in a time when global news coming through media that doesn't seem to sleep these days is heavy, and it's relentless. When virtual reality and artificial intelligence are sprinting forward without broad or full understanding of exactly what they even are, and without common agreements for the ethical use of them. Even on good days, it's completely exhausting, and I'm guessing a lot of us here can relate to that. I'm not looking for pity here or even sympathy. I'm loving this stage of my life, and there's a lot more I'd like to say about it, but there's not really time, and I'm not a person who likes to tell other people what to do, so all this just to say, there's a cycle here. Civic engagement is important in all the shapes it takes for 1,000 beautiful reasons. Young people these days need us to welcome them into it, and we need them to help keep it effective and alive, to know that we value them and that their voices matter. So, a question for each of us. What can I do? What can you do? What can we, all of us, do with the young people in our lives and communities, including here at OUUC, to help that happen? Thank you. Each Sunday, we engage in the spiritual practices of generosity and gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. We each have the power to give, and when we combine our gifts to create an offering, together we are all able to do more than any of us can do alone. We also express our gratitude for the gifts life has given us, for the network of relationships in which we live, and for the presence of this community. If you are new or visiting us here today, you are our guest, and we do not expect you to contribute. But if you are moved to be part of our offering, what you share will be gratefully received. The offering collected here today does two things. It helps to support the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by our regular pledges. It also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. Our Share the Plate organization for July and August this summer is the South Sound Reading Foundation. This is what they share about their work.
Hello, Olympia Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm Jennifer Williamson Forster, and I have the best job in the world because I get to work at the South Sound Reading Foundation. At the Reading Foundation, we educate families about the importance of reading. We get kids excited about reading through our reading engagement programming, like story times and book talks. But we're most known for our free books for kids programming. These are books kids get to choose, keep, read, reread, and cherish. Our program rely heavily on donated books, and we rarely receive bilingual books or books that reflect the rich diversity of our community. Your Share the Plate funding will allow us to purchase books, some bilingual and all featuring diverse characters that reflect and resonate with the children, youth, and families we serve. I have a cold, so I apologize. Often the children who need access to books most do not have it. So, here's a statistic. 61% of low-income households have no age-appropriate books in the home. Research shows that access to books, especially ones that interest and reflect the reader, improve reading and reading outcomes, which impact school performance, graduation rates, and lifetime earnings. Access to books is key. So thank you to the Share the Plate Committee and everyone at the Olympia Unitarian Universalist congregation for helping us get great, high-interest, diverse books to kids in our community who need them most. Now, before I sign off, here are some ways you can support our important literacy work. I should say some other ways. 1, donate children's books or host a book drive. We are in desperate need of bilingual books and diverse books, but also board books, beginning readers, and graphic novels. 2, promote us on social media. That's easy. 3, volunteer. Help us process books, deliver books, or join us at one of our many community events where we're sharing books with children and youth in our community. And number 4, help us by getting the children in your life to become strong readers. You could do this by 1, reading with them 20 minutes a day, which is our motto. 2, giving them books on special occasions like birthdays and the holidays. And 3, this is a really hard one, normalize reading for them. Show them that you love reading. And if they see the adults in their life reading for pleasure, they'll develop a love of reading. So that's it. Thank you all and happy reading adventures.
May the offering now be generously given, as it is most gratefully received.
Thank you for the financial support you offer to this community. It's received with great gratitude. I invite you to be in this space in whatever way is comfortable for your practice of prayer or meditation. We need to have spiritual practices to keep us present and oriented in anxious times. Resma Menakem, who wrote My Grandmother's Hands, teaches body practices that are designed to help us get used to orienting ourselves. Resma is a somatic abolitionist, which means he strongly believes that we need to recognize that we carry trauma in our bodies, and traumatic responses can be triggered whenever we experience stress. So he teaches practices that reorient us, settling our instinctive responses, which are critical if we're going to respond well in these anxious days. He teaches these to social activists, and he teaches them to the police forces in Minneapolis. So I wanted to take this time to practice one of these with you. The practice of orienting yourself to the place that you're in, which can ease your body's feelings. Please don't do anything that's going to hurt you or stretch yourself too far. Body practices, sometimes we forget that we're getting older and we can't twist around like we used to, so take it easy. So to begin, I ask you to just sit for a second, and I want you to just stare straight ahead. Just look. And breathe in and out several times. And as you're looking straight ahead, just notice what's actually landed and what's actually still in the air. All you're doing is noticing what's happening. Noticing how much you like the color of the chair in front of you or the shirt in front of you. Noticing light filtering into the room. Just noticing. Now what I want you to do is to look over your left shoulder and use your neck and your hips. So turn and look over your shoulder. Take several breaths and notice what's here. And now I invite you to come back to the center. And now look up and breathe in and out. Don't do it if it hurts. And now look down. Breathe in and notice. Now come back to the center. And you're invited to look over your right shoulder, using your neck and your hips if you can. Take several breaths and notice what's here. And the reason why I want you to use your neck and your hips is I want you to engage some of your soul, your lymphatic and your nerve fibers. And now come back forward. And now let's just be quiet and notice what might be different. Breathe several times. The animal body stays attuned to whatever is in the room. And this is a practice that orients your body, letting it know exactly where it is, allowing it to perhaps relax and feel a bit safer. Let's hold this sacred moment of silence together, just for a few short seconds. We come together this morning bringing all that is in our lives. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of life as we place stones in the water of community. You will hear a drumbeat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat and that together we create the heartbeat of community. Right now, and I invite you to take a breath, a deep breath, in and out, as we open our hearts to the complexity of all that it is in our lives and our community today. For those online, I invite you to share from your heart by entering into the chat. Us in here in the sanctuary can see your sharing on the screen. And for everyone in person today, I invite you to come forward if there's something you would like to share. You may place a stone into the water as you hold your sharing in your heart. Please come up through the side aisle here, and you can return to your seat by the center aisle. Let us hear the heartbeat from our community as we reach our hearts in love and care to all those who share. Please come forward.
We place a stone in the water for all that has been shared online. And we place one more stone in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken.
What we need is here. What we need is here. Join in. What we need is here. What we need is here. If you feel the urge, you can add some harmony. Here we go. What we need is here. 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 Just a hum.
Today's reading is from Active Hope by Joanna Macy. Active hope is not wishful thinking. Active hope is not waiting to be rescued by some savior. Active hope is waking up to the beauty of life on whose behalf we can act. We belong to this world. The web of life is calling us forth at this time. We've come a long way, and we are here to play our part. With active hope, we realize that there are adventures in store, strengths to discover, and comrades to link arms with. Active hope is a readiness to discover the strengths in ourselves and in others, a readiness to discover the reasons for hope and the occasions for love. A readiness to discover the size and strength of our hearts, our quickness of mind, our steadiness of purpose, our own authority, our love for life, the liveliness of our curiosity, the unsuspected, deep well of patience and diligence, the keenness of our senses, and our capacity to lead. None of these can be discovered in an armchair or without risk.
So last December, I attended a monthly gathering in Kirkland for the local Christian clergy there. I asked at that time, like, should we be setting up a calendar for what we're going to be doing next year in 2024? Planning maybe some of the ecumenical activities that our churches could do together. Good Friday, Pride Day. And then someone mentioned that perhaps we should do an election night vigil. My stomach dropped at the thought. Because this year, there's the very real possibility that this country could be voting in a fascist system. And I can't accept that an election night vigil might be enough this year. We can't afford to be passive about what's going on. Whatever we each believe about the power of prayer, I would urge that we both pray and act. Now, I know there's concern whenever politics is the topic in our church spaces. We become concerned about our tax-exempt status, right? We're concerned that it might get jeopardized if we endorse one candidate over another. So is it safe, really, for us to talk about politics here? Yes. The answer is yes. From the pulpit, I won't be talking about particular politicians or particular political parties. But I don't need to. Because this is more than about the particularities. It's about the political system that is out of control, and it is about extremism that is steering us into possible cataclysmic times. Guided by our values and our principles as religious people, we are compelled to talk about the political forces that are in play right now. As a religious community, we are obligated to assert our values. American politics is becoming perilously close to supporting false beliefs and dangerous practices, and we as religious people need to be clear about our own personal values, about our principles and our convictions, so that we can be leaders in steering this country away from danger. The upcoming election is very much about the survival of democracy. 8 years ago, we experienced firsthand a conservative administration that began the process of eroding democracy, demonstrated by creating detention centers at our southern borders, establishing a special military force, ICE, that works outside the conventional criminal justice system, and by undermining the systems that support the social welfare and safety of the poor and marginalized citizens among us. Then these past 4 years, we've had some semblance of what normal feels like again, right? And perhaps this reassured some of us that democracy is solid and reliable again. We have to remind ourselves, though, that there continues to be a real and concerted effort that threatens democracy. There's been recent attention to the publication titled Project 2025. How many here in this room know 2025? Thank goodness. 70% of the people in this country are not aware of it. It's been around for several years now, but only has recently been gaining more attention. Project 2025 is an extensive collection of documents created by the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, Its purpose is to provide a framework for policies and actions for the next conservative president. While it is not officially the Republican platform, it was largely written by former members of the conservative administration, along with other conservative groups who have created a four-pillar approach to insinuate themselves not only into the policy-making structure of the next conservative president, but into the selection of only president loyalists to federal positions, and attempting to give the executive branch of government unilateral power. It would eliminate our three-branch system, the judicial, legislative, and executive, which we rely on for the checks and balances of power needed to assure fair and equal governance for all. Democracy relies on the distribution of power, and elevating the executive branch creates a hierarchy that moves us closer to a fascist form of governance. I'm not going to go deeply into fascism here. Probably you're relieved by that. But I urge you to look into Yale professor Jason Stanley's work, starting with his short video called The 10 Tactics of Fascism, and his book that's very short and easy to read called How Fascism Works, which provides an excellent overview along with disturbing correlation between the conservative agenda and fascist practices. In his book, Jason Stanley writes this: "The dangers of fascist politics come from the particular way in which it dehumanizes segments of the population. By excluding these groups, it limits the capacity for empathy among citizens, leading to the justification of inhumane treatment, from repression of freedom, mass imprisonment, and expulsion to, in extreme cases, mass extermination." Now, why I am up here arguing that we must all defend democracy, I have to actually admit my own ambiguity about this. I have to admit that American democracy is not practiced the way I can wholeheartedly endorse. Somewhere along the way, American democracy has become synonymous with capitalism and synonymous with the presumptive arrogance regarding the rest of the world. And this holds little appeal to me. I guess I agree with Winston Churchill, who is most famous for this quote, which I'm sure many of you know: "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." What does appeal to me is the experiment of democracy with its possible promise of pluralism. And by that I mean a country where people of all social classes, religions, races, genders, and identities are together while still holding their different traditions and interests. That is a vision of democracy I can endorse. I like democracy as a verb, a goal to strive for, more than a noun, a title that we can claim. We don't yet have a true pluralistic democracy, but that doesn't mean we give up on it. It means we apply ourselves to our ideals just a little bit stronger. So you may be sitting there wondering, why is the topic of democracy coming up in church? Why is this coming up in the place that we worship together? Well, I believe that democracy is an issue of how we live our faith. I also believe that it's a spiritual issue that impacts the soul of each of us here, as well as the soul of our nation. No matter which side of this escalating division we are on, all of us are experiencing some degree of fear, of anxiety, anger, disbelief, and denial. How do we live in this fraught time without becoming angry people, frightened people, disbelievers? How do we maintain our personal integrity during these days, being the people who we always dreamed that we would be? I'm talking here about our spirits. How do we ground ourselves in such a way that we respond out of our love for each other, our love for this world, And how do we respond in healthy, sustainable ways? There's no benefit to learning about the threat to democracy and the hallmarks of fascism if it only perpetuates our fears and our anxieties and leads to diminishing our adherence to our values. Knowledge alone does not help. Joanna Macy, in her book Active Hope, argues that we are in a time of immense upheaval. She calls this time the Great Turning. She likens this to other historic times of great social change, such as the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution, times of great social shifts. As the world unravels around us, Macy identifies 3 dimensions of how we might respond during this time. The first dimension is called holding actions. These are the actions we take to hold things back, to slow things down, to slow down the damage being done. These involve things that I'm sure many of you are already doing. It's boycotts, petitions, legal proceedings, and protests, holding back the tide. The second dimension is a shift toward life-sustaining systems and practices. This means rethinking how we approach large systems. Things like, how do we reimagine healthcare in this country? How do we reimagine banking, business, agriculture, transportation, and so many other structures and systems that over time have become detrimental instead of life-sustaining? And the third dimension is a shift in consciousness toward a deeper connected identity. I see that that is the work that we do here in this community. At the core of this is the deep wellspring of caring and compassion we each hold for each other. We need to deepen our sense of belonging to each other and belonging to this world. And we do this by devoting ourselves on a regular basis to practices that reconnect us to our hearts, to our minds, and to our views of reality. These are practices that resonate with our spiritual nature and call us back to living according to our values, to our hearts. Years ago, the Unitarian-Universalist Association launched a national advertising campaign for our faith tradition. When asked the question, what is the saving message of our faith? The response was, to nurture the spirit and help heal the world. To nurture the spirit and to help heal the world. This simple statement sums up our faith for me and incorporates the dimensions of action that Macy describes. It's all about healing our spirits, our relationships, our world. And this is why we're here in this religious community to do this work together. We openly face what is happening here in this country. We need to acknowledge it, and we need to grieve it together. And this is why more than ever we need to pray, practice gratitude, practice listening to each other's heart stories, because we need practices that deepen our souls and deepen our hearts. We need to sustain ourselves and each other as we work toward healing and restoration. And that is why we need to examine democracy and examine our political resolve, because we're all part of this great turning toward holding, turning toward sustainability, turning toward deepening consciousness. What am I asking of us? I am asking that this year we each commit to practices that will sustain us both at a personal and social level. Pray, meditate, do yoga, sit in nature, breathe. Join rituals of lament, vigils, protests, boycotts, and actions. This year, be deliberate, be present, nurture your spirit, help heal our world. Blessed be.
I invite you to rise in body and our spirit, and let's sing, "We Shall Be Known." We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around, attend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We're going to repeat that. I invite you to harmonize, make up your own part, but sing with everything you got. Here we go. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within this earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love.
If you are online and have a chalice or candle, please join us as we extinguish our chalices with these words, brought to us by Reverend Nancy from the congregation she recently served in Kirkland. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, go in joy, and go in love.